In the early hours of October 14th, 2016, deep in the forest outside the small town of Black Ridge, Colorado, a 911 call came in that would leave investigators confused for years. The call lasted just 12 seconds. A young woman whispered 3 words into the phone. "Someone is here." Then the line went dead. When police traced the call, it led them to a remote cabin nearly 12 miles outside town. The cabin belonged to 28-year-old Hannah Cole. But when officers arrived at the property, Hannah was gone, and the cabin looked like someone had vanished in the middle of an ordinary night. Lights were still on. A kettle sat on the stove, half-boiled, and Hannah's phone lay on the kitchen floor, still connected to the 911 operator. At first, investigators believed it might be a burglary gone wrong, but the deeper they looked, the stranger the story became. Because Hannah Cole had moved to Black Ridge only 4 months earlier. Before that, she lived in Denver, working as a freelance graphic designer. Friends described her as quiet, creative, and someone who loved solitude. So when she told people she was renting a cabin in the mountains to get away from the noise, no one thought much of it. The cabin itself was isolated. A narrow dirt road wound through miles of pine forest before finally reaching the small wooden structure. The nearest neighbor lived over 3 miles away, which meant whatever happened that night likely happened with no witnesses. When investigators entered the cabin, they immediately noticed signs that something had interrupted Hannah. Dinner was still on the table, her laptop was open, and the television quietly played a nature documentary in the background, but there were no signs of forced entry. The doors were locked, the windows were intact, and there was no sign of a struggle, at least, not at first glance. Then one of the deputies noticed something near the back door, a single muddy footprint. It didn't match Hannah's shoes, and it was facing inward, as if someone had stepped inside the cabin from the darkness outside. Police searched the surrounding forest for hours. They found nothing. No tire tracks, no dropped items, no signs that Hannah had walked into the woods. It was as if she had simply disappeared. But the next clue came from her phone. Investigators recovered the short 911 call and enhanced the audio. Beneath Hannah's whisper, there was another sound. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving across the wooden floor. The sound didn't start until after Hannah spoke, which meant whoever had entered the cabin was already inside while she was calling for help. But that wasn't the only discovery. When detectives reviewed Hannah's laptop, they found something unsettling. For weeks before her disappearance, she had been documenting strange things happening around the cabin. At first it was small things, footprints near the tree line, lights moving through the forest late at night. And once, she wrote that she heard someone walking around the cabin at 2 a.m. But every time she checked outside, no one was there. Most people assumed it was just wildlife. But Hannah didn't think so. Her final entry was written the night she disappeared. It read, "I know someone is out there. I've seen them watching the house. If anything happens, this is proof I wasn't imagining it." After reading the entry, investigators expanded their search. 2 days later, they found something. About half a mile behind the cabin was an old logging trail that hadn't been used in years, and beside it, hidden under branches, was a small campsite. There was a tent, a portable stove, and dozens of empty food cans. Whoever had been living there had clearly been staying for weeks. But the most disturbing discovery was a pair of binoculars pointed directly toward Hannah's cabin. The campsite suggested something terrifying. Someone had been watching Hannah, possibly for a long time, but the person living there was gone, and there was still no sign of Hannah herself. For nearly a month the case stalled. Search teams combed the forest. Volunteers joined organized search parties, but the mountains were vast, and winter was approaching. Then a break finally came from an unexpected place, a gas station security camera, about 40 miles from Black Ridge. The footage showed a man entering the store late at night, wearing a dark jacket and muddy boots. But what caught investigators' attention was the vehicle outside, a faded green pickup truck, Parked in the background was something chilling, a blanket in the truck bed, and underneath it, a human arm. The footage was grainy, but it was enough. Police identified the truck as belonging to a 36-year-old man named Daniel Mercer. Mercer had a history of trespassing and stalking charges in 2 different states. When police went to his registered address, the house was empty, but the green pickup was gone. The search for Mercer turned into a multi-state manhunt. For nearly 3 weeks, he managed to avoid police, until a highway patrol officer spotted the green pickup abandoned on a remote road near the Utah border. Inside the truck, investigators made the discovery they had been fearing. Hannah Cole's body was found wrapped in the same blanket seen in the gas station footage, but Daniel Mercer was nowhere to be found. Authorities believe Mercer had been living in the woods behind Hannah's cabin, watching her from a distance, learning her routines, waiting for the right moment. On the night of October 14th, he finally entered the cabin. What happened inside will never be fully known, but Hannah's final whisper captured the moment she realized she wasn't alone. Despite one of the largest searches in the region's history, Daniel Mercer was never captured. Some investigators believe he died while fleeing through the mountains. Others believe he simply disappeared and started over somewhere else. But even today, hikers occasionally report finding abandoned campsites deep in the forests near Black Ridge. Campsites with empty food cans, a small tent, and sometimes binoculars pointed toward distant cabins, as if someone is still watching.